Located on the backside of Pikes Peak, Colorado's Cripple Creek mining district would be discovered relatively late in the state's gold rush, but would become the most lucrative producer in the state, with almost $25 billion in today's money coming from Cripple Creek. Today, the Vindicator Valley trailhead weaves through the ruins and ghost towns sitting on top of what was once over 500 gold mines and the fourth highest producing vein in the region. Its network of mines reach over 2,000 feet deep into the ground, which is over twice the height of the Empire State Building. The semi-ghost towns of Goldfield and Victor both sit outside of Vindicator, which is the area we will be focusing on today, consisting of the massive mining operation as well as several large homes on the grounds as well. While surveying areas for gold mines, Winfield Scott Stratton would pass on the Vindicator mine, believing it worthless due to its elevation of over 10,000 feet, and choosing the nearby Independence Lode in 1891, which would make him the first millionaire in Cripple Creek. But in 1893, a claim would be staked for the Vindicator Lode, and 2 years later the first mine began operation. By the following year, 4 mines had begun operating when it was decided to form the Vindicator Consolidated Gold Mining Company to combine them all financially and literally, with a large network of tunnels being dug. About half of the founding directors were related to Philip A. Zhang, owner of the prominent Denver-based Zhang Brewery. Oh yeah, wouldn't step on this, that's for sure. This home close to the mine shaft was the Beebe House, which housed 5 generations of the family, who managed multiple mines in the region and concluded with Alfred H. Beebe, who was Vindicator's vice president during the 1930s. By 1900, over 50,000 people had come to the area of Cripple Creek, with 2 mine shafts and 5 miles of underground mines. Oh, this is cool. There's something about the history. Floor's not the greatest. Oh my God, there's a deer in here. Look, there he is. Poor guy, he was just trying to stay out in the cool air and I was bothering him. I'll go this way so he can come back in. Can't quite go here either. By 1901, Vindicator had produced $3.5 million of gold, which would equate to over $131 million today. In September 1903, Philip Zhang's son would sell his holdings in the mine for $100,000, as this was during the Colorado Labor War, and the Western Federation of Miners Union was striking against the Cripple Creek Mine Owners Association. 2 months later, on November 21, 1903, an explosion 600 feet underground would bury the shift boss and superintendent. Both would be dug out while still alive, but died within minutes of being saved. An investigation would uncover that the explosion was an act of sabotage. Someone had tied a wire to the guardrail that would pull the trigger on a revolver, making it shoot into a pack of dynamite. 1,000 National Guard would be called in, but this attack would turn the public against the Union, branding them terrorists and effectively banishing them from the area. Eventually, Albert Horsley would confess to the bombing, testifying that the president of the Union had paid him $300 to explode the 7th level of the mine, where 15 non-Union scab men were working, but Horsley had gotten the wrong level. Horsley would also testify he had committed other crimes during the Colorado Labor War that ended in 1904, and the 1905 assassination of former Idaho Governor Frank Steunenberg. Some disputed his confession, wondering if the mine owners had actually paid him to ruin the Union's reputation. Following the Labor War, Vindicator set about expanding the next year, acquiring the adjacent Independence Town and Mining Company and the Lilly Gold Mining Company. The next few years saw improvements around the mine, including 4 lignite-burning water tube boilers to replace fuel-burning ones, and waste rock was sold to contractors for fill on railroad grades. Many wooden structures would be upgraded to metal. Oh, it'd be a great view. Except there's trees in the way. By 1908, over 25 miles of mines wound underground. But when World War I began, the region's mines began to see lower production, with many men going overseas. In 1913, Adolf Zang would return to Vindicator as the new company president, and 2 years later purchased another adjacent mine. This time, the Golden Cycle mine for $1.5 million. They would also purchase the closed-down La Bella electric generating plant, converting it into a cyanide mill, as, when sprayed on the ore, cyanide will attach itself onto the gold particles, allowing them to easily be harvested. Vindicator would close all of the other mine entrances, funneling underground access solely through their 2 mine shafts. But, by now, Vindicator's production had slowed down, producing only low-grade ore. A drainage tunnel that began construction in 1907 to alleviate the water issues met at 500 feet had still not reached this mine. Check this feather out. Do not know about this. This is extremely stupid. Honestly, that's about it. In 1916, as Adolf Zang was inspecting the Vindicator mine, he would collapse, passing away in his house in Denver later that day. Finally, in 1921, the drainage tunnel would reach Vindicator, which at that time was supplying its ore to pave streets in Cripple Creek, Victor, and even Colorado Springs. The ore was so low grade it was not worth the cost of extracting the gold, leaving citizens to brag that their streets were paved with gold. In 1922, the Vindicator Consolidated Gold Mining Company would be sold to the United Gold Mines Company, and ownership would pass through several family members when in 1935, the US government would increase the price of gold to $35 an ounce, and the Vindicator mine would be reinvigorated. The Teresa mine seen here was built in 1934 after a fire destroyed the original mine structure, which had been built in 1896. It had sat idle from 1915 until 1930. As the mine reached further down in the ground, a second drainage tunnel was required, and the 6-mile tunnel was dug between 1939 and 1941. Prior to the tunnel's completion, the owners had been leasing out most of its mines to independent contractors, where they would supply the mines and equipment, while the contractor provided the workers and profits were split between the 2 parties. But just as the drainage tunnel was completed, the United States entered into World War II, yet again seeing its workforce leave overseas, and in 1942, the government ordered all mines not producing essential items such as iron, copper, or lead to be closed.
wow, look at this.
Post-war, Vindicator would reopen until 1953, but many people had already left the area looking for work. In 1956, it would reopen but close permanently 2 years later as operating costs had exceeded profits.
Look at them. It still works too.
Today, the nearby Cripple Creek and Victor gold mine still operates, but the last activity at Vindicator took place back in the late 80s, when the ore dump piles would be gathered and sent for processing to collect any last remaining gold pieces.